The guards couldn't stop laughing when she stepped through the base gate that morning. Her uniform spotless, her medals shining, her boots polished so clean they reflected the sun. "Nice costume, sweetheart," one of them sneered. "Halloween's next month." But she didn't flinch. She'd been through worse: mortar fire, ambushes, loss. Their words meant nothing. What they didn't know was that the woman they mocked had once commanded missions that saved lives. Missions most soldiers couldn't even imagine. They thought she was a fraud, a poser in a fake Marine uniform. But in just a few minutes, when 6 Navy SEALs would march through that same gate, salute her, and call her ma'am, every man on that base would learn what true respect looks like. If you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will leave you speechless. It was a quiet autumn morning at Camp Stanton. The American flag fluttered proudly in the cool breeze. The guards at the front gate were in a good mood, sipping coffee, joking, scrolling through their phones between ID checks. The day seemed ordinary, but that was about to change. At exactly 8:45 a.m., a silver Dodge Charger rolled up to the gate. The engine purred and the driver's window slid down smoothly. Behind it sat a woman in her mid-30s, strong posture, sharp eyes, and the unmistakable confidence of someone who had spent years in uniform. She handed over her ID calmly. "Morning, Corporal," she said. Her voice carried a quiet authority. The young guard blinked. Morning, ma'am." He looked at her card, then at her uniform. "You got business here?" "I'm here for the operations briefing," she said evenly. "Lieutenant Colonel Harding is expecting me." The second guard leaned closer, squinting. "Sergeant Major Rebecca Cole," he read aloud, then chuckled. "You serious?" "You don't look like a sergeant major." Rebecca didn't flinch. "And what exactly does a sergeant major look like, Sergeant?" The guards exchanged a grin. "Ma'am," the younger one said, dripping sarcasm, "you look like you walked straight out of a Marine commercial." "That's a lot of medals for someone we've never heard of." "Call Harding," she said. "He'll confirm." But instead of doing that, they decided to mock her a little more. "You know, ma'am," one said, "we get fake uniforms all the time. People love to play dress-up for attention. Yours is pretty convincing, I'll give you that." Rebecca took a slow breath, her jaw tightening slightly. "I served 15 years in the Corps," she said softly. "Combat tours in Fallujah, Helmand, and Kandahar." "You don't get these ribbons on eBay," the guards laughed. "Fallujah? You were what, 16? One sneered. Women weren't even on the front lines back then. Rebecca didn't bother replying. She'd learned long ago that silence speaks louder than shouting. But inside, she remembered that desert heat. The chaos, the explosions, and the friends she'd buried. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step out of the vehicle," the guard said finally, hand resting on his belt. "Just protocol." Rebecca sighed, opened her door, and stepped out with perfect composure. Her boots hit the pavement with precision. The other soldiers nearby started watching. A fake Marine at the gate was something to see. One guard circled her mockingly. "Where'd you get that silver star?" he asked. "Amazon?" She met his eyes. "Fallujah. 2007. Operation Phantom Fury." That stopped him. Just for a second. Then he scoffed. "Yeah, sure. And I'm the president." "Call Harding," she repeated. Inside the base, whispers started. "There's some woman at the gate pretending to be a Marine." Phones came out. People laughed. No one bothered to check the facts. The guard finally radioed the command office. "We got a woman here claiming to be Sergeant Major Rebecca Cole. Says she's expected by Colonel Harding." "You got confirmation?" There was a pause. Then a sharp voice came through. "Repeat that name." The guard did. Another long pause. Then, "Let her through, immediately." The guards froze. But before they could move, a black SUV pulled up behind Rebecca's car. The door opened and 6 men stepped out, plain clothes, but the way they carried themselves said everything. Navy SEALs. The lead SEAL, a tall man with a scar on his cheek, walked straight toward Rebecca. Then, to everyone's shock, he snapped to attention. "Ma'am," he said loudly, saluting. "It's an honor to see you again." Every guard went silent. The SEALs followed suit, lining up behind him, eyes forward, posture sharp. 6 of the toughest men in the military stood at full attention. For her. Rebecca nodded. "At ease, Chief Daniels." Daniels smiled slightly. "Didn't think you'd come back, ma'am." "Neither did I," she said. But the colonel insisted. The guards' faces were pale now. "Evans," The one who mocked her medals stammered, "Wait, you actually are." The SEAL cut him off. "Son, she led our extraction team in Kandahar. Saved 12 of us when the mission went sideways. You're standing in front of a legend." Rebecca turned to the guards calmly. "Can I proceed now?" They scrambled to open the gate. "Yes, ma'am. Absolutely, ma'am." As she drove through, the laughter that had filled the air minutes ago was replaced with silence. Heavy, humbling silence. Inside the base conference room, Rebecca stood before a dozen high-ranking officers. The tone was all business now. Maps and mission plans covered the screens. Sergeant Major Cole. Colonel Harding greeted, shaking her hand firmly. "It's good to have you back." "Good to be here, sir." She began reviewing the SEAL team's readiness protocols, her voice steady, precise. Every sentence was sharp, confident, the kind of voice that makes men listen. But halfway through, a young officer raised his hand. "Sir, no disrespect, but why are we listening to someone who's been out of active duty for years?" The room froze. Rebecca looked straight at him. "Because experience doesn't expire, Lieutenant," she said calmly. "The battlefield changes. But courage doesn't. Discipline doesn't. Leadership doesn't." The officer said nothing more. Even the colonel looked impressed. Later that afternoon, chaos erupted near the east gate. A Humvee caught fire after a fuel line rupture. Flames shot up, smoke billowed. A young private was trapped inside, screaming for help. Before anyone could react, Rebecca sprinted toward the fire. The heat was brutal, but she didn't slow. She grabbed an extinguisher, tried to unlock the latch, but it jammed. Without hesitation, she ran closer, using her jacket to shield her face. "Cole, don't—" Daniels shouted, but she was already moving. She yanked the Humvee door open, ignoring the flames. The private was disoriented, coughing hard. She pulled him out, dragging him to safety seconds before the vehicle exploded behind them. The blast shook the ground. The guards who had mocked her earlier stared in stunned silence. The fake Marine had just saved a soldier's life. Again, paramedics rushed in. Daniels knelt beside her, shaking his head. "Still running into fire, huh?" She smiled weakly. "Old habits." By evening, word had spread across the base like wildfire. The imposter was a war hero. The woman they laughed at had once led SEALs into combat. She'd just risked her life again to save a private. The same guards from that morning sat in the mess hall, silent. Evans stared at his food. "You think she'll forgive us?" he asked. Lane sighed. "Doesn't matter. What matters is we don't forget." Across the base, Rebecca stood beneath the flagpole, watching the stars. Daniels joined her quietly. "You ever get tired of proving people wrong?" he asked. She smiled. "Every day." "But that's not why I do it." "Why then?" "Because the uniform isn't about who believes in you. It's about who you are when no one does." The next morning, she returned to the gate. The same two guards stood at attention, nervous but proud. They saluted sharply. "Morning, Sergeant Major," Evans said. "Ma'am, it's an honor," Rebecca smiled. "Keep that gate tight, Corporal." "Yes, ma'am." As she drove through, Lane whispered, "You think we'll ever see someone like her again?" Evans shook his head. "Not in this lifetime." And that's how a group of arrogant guards learned what real service looks like. Not through words, not through rank, but through courage, humility, and heart. If this story inspired you, hit that subscribe button. Show love to your mom and dad, because people like her remind us what strength truly means. Now tell me down in the comments, from which part of the country are you watching this from?